Good evening, and welcome back to another episode of Raven Investigates. Tonight we will be traveling to New Smyrna Beach, Florida, where a mother's worst nightmare comes true, yet she is not above suspicion. We will be looking into a case of a life lost before its time, and a number of confusing circumstances surrounding the child's death. A case where acting calm was seen as suspicious, and the police closing the case as solved despite a jury's decision to acquit. Tonight, we will be investigating the unsolved murder of Dmitric Alexander Moore. April 23rd, 1995, 2 p.m. 8-year-old Dimitric Moore told his mother, Aura Lee Moore, that he was going to go outside and play with his friends. Nothing that was out of the ordinary for an energetic child like himself. The day passed as normal. Nothing seemed, again, out of the ordinary, until the evening came and Dimitric was nowhere to be found. Aura began searching the area for her son, though the search was ultimately fruitless. After a couple hours, at 9 p.m., Aura decided that she needed to get the police involved to search for her son. They continued their search through a sleepless night, but again, to no avail. The next day is when the situation went from tense to worst case scenario. At 4 p.m., 26 hours after he had left to go outside and play, Dimitric's older brother Damon found his naked body and his clothing in the trunk of his mother's car. The initial belief was that Dmitric had locked himself in the trunk and couldn't escape, but the cause of death was quickly ruled as asphyxiation, and this case immediately became a homicide. It was determined that Dmitric had died between 18 to 24 hours prior, so somewhere between 2 hours after he left, 4 p.m., to 8 hours after he left, 10 p.m. Police immediately turned to Aura Lee for answers, taking her to the station and questioning her for several hours. This happened a number of times, and Aura was the main suspect, and she was questioned a number of times throughout the case. That said, it wasn't until December of 1995 that she was officially arrested, a total of 8 months after Dimitric's death. The trial didn't begin for another 5 months in May of 1996. During the trial, the prosecutor, J. Stephen Alexander, claimed that there were witnesses that saw Dimitric come home at 8 p.m. on the night that he had died, 1 hour before he was reported as missing. From there, he theorized that Dimitric came home dirty, and this made Aura Lee furious. He said that he believed that she threw him in the bathtub, beat him, and then caused him to drown. Then, after he had died, she threw his body into the trunk of her car with his clothes to hide the murder. This story was formed due to the injuries on his body. He was found with bruises and cigarette burns, and the fact that the clothing in the trunk was wet. Furthermore, the medical examiner noted that his body had been thoroughly cleaned. On top of this, Alexander stated that Aura had inconsistencies in her story, and that she was too calm and lacking urgency in the disappearance of her son. Lastly, she had also made comments to journalists about how she had not smothered nor drowned her son. But this statement was made prior to the cause of death being publicly released by the police. This may sound like it's a clear-cut situation. She knew things that only the killer would likely know, right? Well, as always, it's not that easy. During the trial, there was a video that was shown of Aura's interrogation. During said interrogation, the investigator mentioned Dimitric's cause of death multiple times, meaning that this fact was definitely hammered into her head. On top of that, while the neighbors testified that they could hear conversations through the dividing wall, there was nothing suspicious that occurred on the night of Dimitric's death. Also, the forensic pathologist stated flat out that the injuries Dmitric had suffered could have easily come from an altercation with another group of boys. The presentation of information from both sides was taken into consideration, and the jury deliberated. On June of 1996, over a full year after his death, they determined that Aura Lee Moore had not killed her son. The police, however, disagreed and decided to mark the case as closed and that she had killed him. Because of this, the case was officially solved and no other investigation was pursued for almost another full year. In February of 1997, the state, not the local precinct, decided to reopen the case under the belief that local boys had possibly killed Dimitric. Interestingly, there was a group of boys that lied to the police about having seen him that day. They claimed they hadn't at first, but then a number of witnesses said that they had seen several of the boys bullying Dimitric, pinning him to the ground, and forcing him to eat dirt. From this, the newest theory was that some of the neighborhood boys had picked a fight with Dimitric, who was a smaller kid, and accidentally killed him during the fight. It is also believed that the parents of said boys helped to cover up the crime by cleaning his body and putting him in the trunk of Aura's unlocked car. Aura stated that while they were searching for her son, 2 women approached her at a local basketball court and told her about Dimitric getting into a fight down by the railroad tracks. This led to them searching the tracks, and she believes that this gave them the opportunity to put him in her trunk. That is where the official information on this case ends. There has been no real movement on this case, and despite the fact that she was acquitted of all charges, the local police still insist that she was guilty, and this case is officially marked as closed. Covering the info about the family and the police suspecting them, the character of the family has been well documented. Dmitric was a straight-A student and was considered highly intelligent for his age. Aura stated that she practically never had to discipline him, and when she did, it was more likely that he would be sent to his room than anything. His brother, who was 21 at the time of this whole event, was known to have adored his baby brother and would have never have hurt him. Lastly, her boyfriend, Anthony, also loved Dimitric and was stated to have treated him like his own son. Dimitric was also a karate student, one that was taught throughout the entire course that he should try to de-escalate a fight before having to defend himself. It's likely that if the boys had been picking on him and hitting him, he would have attempted to talk to them first, but may have ended up in a fight. Unfortunately, him being smaller in stature, he likely would have been overpowered, and if he had fought back, that may have increased the aggression of his attackers, leading to his accidental demise. To add to the humiliation of Aura being indicted, it was stated on record to the Orlando Sentinel that her attorney had to stop her testimony due to the one-sidedness of the questioning. He stated that she was repeatedly interrupted and the grand jurors were barraging her with questions. He also stated that a number of the jurors were aggressive with her, which indicated a full-on bias and immediate belief that she was guilty. Lastly, it was also stated that one juror fell asleep during the session and was caught snoring during the questioning. Obviously, if this is all true, there was no unbiased grand jury. From here, he decided that a trial by jury was ultimately necessary. I've also read an interesting conflict of schedules from the Sentinel, one that is not the same as what Unsolved Mysteries documented. They stated that Dimitric went to play next door, and that Aura went to a church meeting at 3 p.m. and returned by 4 p.m. From there, Dimitric had not returned by 6:30, and she had concluded that he had gone shopping with her sister-in-law's family. When he hadn't come back by 9, she called the police. At 10:30 p.m., she had to go to work, which I understand. She was a nurse's aide making $12,000 a year, and she probably couldn't afford to miss a day of work. Despite this, she had gotten a call at midnight that he hadn't been found, and then she took the rest of her shift to try to find him. Now, look at those hours. It was stated that he had died between 4 p.m. and 10 p.m. She had returned from her church meeting at 4 p.m. and had called the police by 9 p.m. to report him missing. By 10, she was at work. So, if she was involved, it would have had to have been between 4 and 9, which is technically a 5-hour gap. However, please note that she was seen looking for him prior to calling the police, so That timeline for her to be involved just keeps getting shorter and shorter. Another thing to add, it's been stated that the police were apparently told by neighborhood boys that Dmitric had been seen getting beat up at a park near his home. Apparently, the police stated that this was not an important lead and chose not to follow up on it. Now, it's also important to not be one-sided about this. It's critical to note that Aura Lee did call the police to report her son missing, but did not call 911. She instead called the regular telephone line number to the police station. It was also noted that during the call, she told the police that she had already contacted the neighbors and friends and that they were already searching for Dimitric. This statement was contradicted by the statement of neighbors who told the police that she had not spoken to them about it. It was also reported to the police approximately 10 minutes before the call to the police that Aura was seen in her front yard arguing with her 21-year-old son Damon. It was once again also stated that it was curious that she had gone to work the night her son had been reported missing. But it was also reported that she said she would be fired if she didn't show up, so this is one of those situations where she could have been freaking out internally, but made it a point to remain calm. She was a nurse's aide, and again, she didn't make much money. $12,000 annually isn't a lot of money to support a family. It could have been a situation of, I can't lose our place, and I need to buy food, so I have to go to work and not get fired even though my son is missing. It's relevant, but it is difficult to make a judgment on that situation. It's also relevant to add that Aura was polygraphed 3 separate times, and she failed all 3. While this doesn't make her a criminal, it does call her credibility into question. There was a comment on Reddit that caught my eye, made by someone that claimed to know the mother and claimed they lived near her when this happened. They stated that the police refused to fingerprint the car despite Aura begging them to do so. They also said they knew the 4 boys had lied to the police about having seen Dimitric, and they were considered suspects after the fact. According to this person, 2 of the boys ended up in prison on death row for child abuse-related deaths, and that one of them had burned his child with a cigarette. Now, of course, I technically have no way of verifying this, as the person's name was never released. They were a minor at the time of this incident. But if that comment is true, it does speak to the character of those 2 people. This is a bit of a rarity for this segment, but there are pretty much just 2 suspects in this situation. The first is Aura Lee Moore, Dimitric's mother. It is possible that she killed her son, though I will say that the prosecutor's version of events was pure speculation, and built only on the possibilities versus the actual evidence. That said, it's possible that she got mad at him for coming home dirty, it is possible that she assaulted him, and it is possible that she drowned him. It, again, is all possible. But the question is it probable or certain? And the answer, in my opinion, is no. The second is the group of neighborhood boys that was seen bullying Dmitric. Now, murder is a long stride to take from simple bullying, though it does sound like, from witness testimony, the boys were escalating their assaults. Forcing someone to eat dirt while holding them down is pretty messed up, and that's not something that happens on the first encounter typically either. On top of that, if he had attempted to defend himself, it may have caused things to get worse. Also, there's that Reddit comment, which, if legit, and the 2 boys did grow up to be murderers, well, it's definitely a possibility. One point of curiosity on the boys that were suspects: were any of them related to police officers? Now, I ask this because, as the mother speculated, it feels like if they were responsible for his death and tried to clean the body, someone would have had to have helped these kids do that. Someone with knowledge of washing evidence off a body. Someone with the wherewithal to get the mother and brother away from the house to hide him in the trunk. Someone, potentially, with forensic knowledge and influence in an investigation. Now, I'm just saying, it would explain why the police marked this case as closed, despite the jury saying that it absolutely wasn't. Disclaimer, this is my opinion, solely my opinion only. It is not your opinion. It is not necessarily a popular opinion nor an unpopular opinion. It is solely the opinion of As the Raven Dreams. In my opinion, once again, the mother was innocent. She had nothing to do with her son's death. In my opinion, those boys murdered Dmitric in their bullying. My mind can easily picture them pinning him down and then forcing dirt into his mouth. Then maybe he spit it back at them and one of the bullies grabbed him by the neck to hold his mouth open and ultimately killed him. It is my opinion that those kids are all guilty, either of the murder itself or just being an accessory. The fact that the police were so adamant that the mother was the murderer is, honestly, suspect to me. If I had to guess, they were either purposely misled or the investigation was influenced by someone. I don't have any evidence that the police were connected to the boys, but something about that just seems really strange. Now, unfortunately, we passed the 25th anniversary of Dimitric's death a couple of months ago. 25 years that his mother and brother, who is now 46, have had to live knowing that there has never been justice in this killing. Again, if that Reddit comment is to be believed, then the two boys involved are on death row at this point. Maybe if they were involved, they'll confess someday. Maybe they'll tell someone in their last moments of life, or maybe they will just take it to the grave. If that comment's a lie, then it's more likely that all four of them are still out there and will never be charged. Unfortunately, just being a Reddit comment, there's no way to verify it. I could reach out to the person, but if they wanted to double down and tell me that they were there, I would have no way of confirming or deconfirming that. So, the fact that this case on paper is closed and that Aura Lee is officially marked as her son's murderer is, honestly, it's sickening. I feel sorry for her and Damon, and I feel sorry for everyone that knew this very intelligent young man. It's truly a sad fact that he could have made something for himself and he could have gone on to be successful in anything he wanted to do, but all that just got ripped away from him. But, my friends, I have to ask, what are your thoughts on this? Do you think Dmitric was murdered by a group of other boys that had been known to bully him? Do you think his mother had anything to do with his death, and do you think there was a possibility of police cover-up? Or, do you have any other thoughts and opinions on this case? Please let me know in the comments down below. I would genuinely love to hear what you think. Unfortunately, that's all I have to say about this case. But please, do consider joining me next time on another episode of Raven Investigates Still Unsolved Mysteries. Until that time, my friends, this is Raven signing off. Sleep well.